I am Ryan Massey. I'm a senior solutions architect with Mobius Partners. I've been with Mobius Partners for about 3 years now, and I've been working in IT for 20. I've been working with VMware products for about 8 years now, since about 3.5. I've worked on data center virtualization, operations management, disaster recovery, networking, and obviously end-user computing, which is what I want to concentrate on today during this presentation. I've been working with VMware end-user computing products for about the same amount of time that I've been working with VMware. And I'm actually really excited where VMware is taking their line of EUC products. So real quick, I thought I'd just go over real quick of who Mobius Partners are. You know, quick note, we were founded in 2000. We have offices in San Antonio, Frisco, and then some staff also in Austin, Texas as well. And we have a lot of areas of expertise, and a lot of these will be on the slide deck. I won't go through every single one of them, but the main ones that I work with are data center design, implementation, server storage networking, and obviously EUC, and I work with NSX a lot as well. So this is just another quick slide here about our areas of expertise. The main one I'm focusing on right now is the team that I actually work with, which is under cloud integration. We do cloud computing, end-user computing again, and obviously the software-defined data center, and automation and hyper-converged. I don't personally work too much with DevOps, but we have team members that work extensively within that area. So, and then I think it was just one more quick slide here. We have a VMware partnership that we've had for a long time. We're very tight with those guys over there. So, these are some of the things that we do through VMware. We actually do a lot of PSO work with VMware too when they need some help. They'll call Mobius Partners, I or another one of our engineers will go out and take care of a lot of the projects that VMware, needs help with. So we're excited about that. Yeah, so today, the main focus that I'd like to communicate out on this presentation is just some customer use case solutions with VMware that I was involved with. I think a lot of these will give great examples of how versatile VMware products can be, and I just feel like VMware feels like to me almost like it's a technical Swiss Army knife in a lot of cases, which I'll show through some of the slides. A lot of the time you can take these VMware products and put them in places where you wouldn't normally think they would fit, and they actually fit very well and will often solve customer use case needs. So I got 3 solutions in today. One of the solutions was to deliver a delivery mechanism for a 3D gaming solution that could deliver 120 to 150 3D enabled desktops for different venues for a global entertainment company. The second one was a multi-site VDI infrastructure for a multinational oil and gas corporation. They wanted to be capable of delivering desktops and apps to users within different locations around the world. The third use case I have here is a VDI solution using hyper-converged infrastructure for a multinational retail corporation, and they wanted to deliver apps and desktops to users and customers with an easy to manage infrastructure. That was one of their main focuses. So, we'll start here with the first use case, which was the global entertainment company. This was a great and exciting project to work on. The customer wanted to be able to basically stand up a server infrastructure at each location that was easily managed. After going through some vSAN ready nodes and some other things, we ended up with a solution that was based off VXRail. Was actually the solution that we went with on this one, which was great for them. VXRail was easily stood up. It can be delivered, in about an hour, and you have a working VMware environment. They also had another requirement, to have an application delivery mechanism that was also easy to manage and allowed for easy upgrades and changes to this 3D enabled app. Another one was going to be they needed an endpoint basically to connect to these desktops, the Horizon desktops, that would work in an outdoor setting, with different weather scenarios, those type of things, and was rugged, something that would last, and also easy to replace, manage, those kind of things. And then overall, they wanted an entire platform that was easily managed enough to where they didn't have to hire new IT staff. They wanted to be able to utilize their existing IT staff. So that was a big one for them. So we had to find something that they could all, learn quickly, manage easily, and also deploy it to multiple sites. So a quick overview, of this site. This is an example here, or a drawing of the general design. It's a hyper-converged cluster per venue, which is based off of VXRail. 6-node hyper-converged cluster designed to be duplicated to each site. One of the big things with VXRail that was appealed to the customer was that vSAN was built in. So they were real happy when we started with the vSAN ready nodes. vSAN was great with the all flash, especially with 3D enabled applications. They couldn't short anything on the storage side. So these were also implemented with NVIDIA Grid. So they have NVIDIA cards within each of the nodes so that they could utilize these 3D graphic applications. And AppVolumes was set up so that they could deliver these 3D applications. And I'll go more into that in some later slides, but that was a big deal for this customer as well. And these are linked clone pools currently being used, but we're currently working on a design to do the just-in-time with instant clones. So that's in progress. We had kind of set up, the original design with linked clones, and they're happy with that, but we've found, or are starting on a new design with some instant clones to see if that's going to be a better solution for them as well. One thing I did want to note here too is if you look at this diagram, I do have AppVolumes listed here in the cluster. We actually centralized AppVolumes managers at a colo. So this AppVolumes you see here is actually just the provisioning machine. So we don't actually have an AppVolumes management server at each of the sites. We were able to basically centralize AppVolumes management server at the co-location and then add machine managers for each site, and then one AppVolumes provisioning machine so that we could basically provision out app stacks to each of those sites. Let's see here. So I think another thing that was great, we had started trying to deliver, the application to basically what was a custom app on a TV through some HTML, and I suggested that we try using some zero clients, and that made a lot of changes for them. That was one of the breaking points where we started putting thin clients out, at each of the locations, and the performance was better. It was easier to maintain, easier to replace the thin clients. So this was a big deal for the customer. And also centralized management of all of these devices. They're very easy to replace. If one broke, they already had a area where they could grab more and put one in, and then it would be automatically provisioned back in. So that was very appealable, to the customer. So VMware AppVolumes, another thing that the customer was very impressed with. We started out early testing the application without AppVolumes, and this was another suggestion. And this is just another great example of when you bring VMware products into a site, you start bringing in more and more products, and it's easy to get more and more VMware products implemented at the site because they just stack onto each other and all work very well. So we were able to actually create an app stack of this 3D application and then deliver it to all the desktops. And now, you know, they have a centralized location with the AppVolumes managers. And if they need to upgrade their application, they can basically create a new app stack with the upgraded application and then just assign the new app stack to the desktops and then unassign the old one and basically just have a reboot, and they were back up and running. And we had kind of discussed, you know, the differences between that and having physical desktops, just trying to imagine the nightmare it would be to upgrade, you know, thousands of physical desktops with, you know, a new application. This just made it, you know, immensely easier, almost astronomically easier to do that. So this was a great addition to their solution. This was just kind of an example I thought I would show, you know, how easy the app stacks were provisioned. Now you basically start out with a new empty app stack, which is a VMDK that attaches to the machine. And then you can basically install the applications that you need. In this case, it was a 3D application. So after that, oh, let me go back to that slide here. Then you basically just provision the app stack out to a user. You can actually provision it out to machines, groups. So there's a lot of versatility there. You know, another good thing about app stacks or AppVolumes in general was I was able to go on site after getting the infrastructure for AppVolumes set up, and in a very short period of time, I was able to train the existing IT staff on how to provision the app stacks and upgrade them and get them set up. So, you know, after a day of knowledge transfer, they were off and running and provisioning their own app stacks, which was great. So, you know, very easy to learn product and very easily manageable. Here's another just kind of quick example of kind of what they were doing. This was basically just an example. I added 2 vCenters here, but you can see here how we basically had a centralized AppVolumes management. It's 2 AppVolumes management servers right now that are load balanced. There could be plans in the future of adding a 3rd one, and possibly even maybe at a different colo in a different part of you know, the United States or wherever, if they needed multiple just for closeness or just you know, the speed between wherever the colo. Let's say the colo's in Dallas and, you know, they have a site in Australia. We might need to put one, you know, near that area where they can actually provision the apps from there. So the centralized AppVolumes management was a real good deal for them. So, you know, for this particular use case, they were very excited after, you know, because their initial thought was they were going to put in multiple physical desktops at each of these stations and then run an application on them and then try to control and manage, you know, potentially thousands of desktops. And so after getting this, it started as a POC. After we showed them, you know, how this is going to work, you know, now we're deploying it to, you know, multiple sites. So, you know, the customer's needs for delivering the 3D application work seamlessly, and, you know, now they're able to actually work more efficiently. And actually it's, you know, giving the engineers more time to actually innovate and basically, you know, they're creating improvements. They're actually putting new games in, and so it's allowing their existing IT staff to basically develop new games and spend their time on that instead of maintaining the environment. So basically it's giving them a time on their hands so that they can do other stuff. But as we went along with the project, you know, a cool thing about this project, when you deploy VMware products, a lot of the other VMware products became appealing to the customer. So while we're in there, they wanted VROPs installed so they could monitor the environment. Then NSX came along, so now we're doing, you know, an NSX POC and looking in to get that set up. Not only that, you know, this was just for this gaming application, but now they want to implement this Horizon infrastructure for their corporate offices. So, you know, they're like, I like how this works so well. Now we want to use it for all of our employees. We want to get them set up with Horizon Desktop. So, you know, just getting in with this now has spread to more and more opportunities within this customer. So I thought that was a really cool example. And, you know, the next thing that we're moving on to now is creating more automation. So now that we've got kind of the infrastructure in place and the processes all done, you know, now we're looking at vRealize vRealize automation, you know, to do a lot of these tasks instead of having staff members, you know, or partners like us come in and actually do tasks that can be done in an automated fashion. All right. So after that one, I'll go ahead and move on to the next use case here, which was a multinational oil and gas corporation. This was a big group. They wanted a VDI infrastructure basically to scale. That was their biggest concern, is they wanted to start with a POC. We had 16 nodes clusters at 2 different sites. And that was the POC. So they basically wanted to deliver desktops to users with the same desktop experience, regardless of where the user's connecting from. So they have users in multiple different locations around the world. One of their criteria was they wanted to be able to scale out to 10,000 users per site, or in this case, from a VMware Horizon perspective, you know, that would be per pod. They wanted a consistent user experience and obviously centralized management and monitoring. They also wanted to be able to, you know, combine certain resources from different blocks and actually create one desktop pool, which is part of the pod and block architecture of Horizon. So that was great that they wanted to do that. And then, you know, VMware has a perfect solution for that. So it worked out really great with this customer. This customer actually went with vSAN ready nodes. You know, how the previous customer went with a VXRail platform, which was easy to stand up. This customer was able to put in, you know, some procedures in place to use vSAN ready nodes, which are also great. And they went with some Dell ready nodes on this one. Obviously, you can see Hewlett-Packard, Cisco. There's a lot of different manufacturers that are certified to basically implement with vSAN. So you can take advantage of, you know, the hardware compatibility has already been taken care of. You don't have to go through the manufacturer and try to see, you know, does this fit in the hardware compatibility list? You know, they'll basically give you a choice of multiple different options for nodes that are ready for you to purchase to set up. And that's what this customer went with. These clusters generally ran from 12 to 18 nodes that this customer was using. So they would start with that and then basically, you know, scale out from there. All right, let's see if I can get the next slide going. There we go. All right, so a little bit about the site architecture. This is kind of just a generalized drawing I put together. This is not the exact site architecture, but it's very close. I didn't want to get too close to, you know, any of the exact specifics. But you can see this is based off of a pod, and then the blocks are listed here. You know, each block would have a vCenter in it and a composer. And then obviously this is a logical look at the infrastructure too, not necessarily physically how it was built out. But then you would also have desktop clusters within those blocks. And then also you can see below, I kind of broke it down where, you know, they would start with 2 Horizon connection servers that were load balanced behind a VIP. This particular customer chose F5 as the load balancer. You can use, you know, even NetScaler or NSX's load balancing solutions, KEMP. I've seen a lot of them used. But basically down here, you can see after another 2,000 VMs was going to be added, desktops, then you would add another connection server and then pop it into the load balancer, and then you've got that all load balanced across. And again, with another 2,000 VMs. Same way with AppVolumes, we kind of came to the point where we started with 2 AppVolumes servers behind a load balancer. They're both connected to the same SQL database. And after that, if we needed more scalability, we would add another AppVolumes Management server there. So let's see, I think that's it on that slide. The AppVolumes infrastructure was one of the biggest things that they used with this site, and writable volumes was actually very important for them. AppStacks was not as much of a concern. They really wanted to utilize the writable volumes so that they could have their users install their own applications and also save their profile data, out of the desktop. And I have some slides later that go into that a little bit more in detail. But this was a make or break point with this customer. It was writable volumes, and it's kind of like if writable volumes did not work, then they didn't necessarily even want to go with it. So we were happy to be able to get that to working for him. Real quick over the, this is just a generalized logical drawing of kind of how a sample design would go between 2 sites. This company had multiple sites, but they did utilize the global traffic manager function of F5 so that they could kind of balance out 2 sites. And then you'll notice externally at each site, they did have a load balancer that will balance between 2 unified access gateways. So basically, these would then forward traffic through the firewall into the internal load balanced VIP, which was also an F5 VIP, which then balanced out the connection servers too. These load balanced VIPs, also there was a load balanced VIP for the AppVolumes server, which I don't actually have necessarily drawn right here, but we did have an internal VIP for the AppVolumes servers, but that didn't necessarily need to be accessed externally, obviously. So that's why it's not showing from the top of the drawing there. But this shows, how the connections come in. The GTM module on the outside makes decisions on which cluster to forward traffic to. And I think, if anyone has worked with older versions of Horizon, you used to have to use security servers. They had a one-to-one mapping. I think the unified gateways are great. You don't have that one-to-one mapping. You can pool multiple UAG servers behind a load balancer. So that's great for scalability. Let's see what else I got here. Yeah, so here's just another slide about AppVolumes. I don't know how many people are familiar with AppVolumes, but I always like to just give kind of a quick overview. AppVolumes, if you look at a traditional desktop or traditional operating system, you can see pretty much the data, files, settings, user profiles, everything's coupled together tightly within the OS. But the AppVolumes, they put the just-in-time app model here, which is kind of a newer term where you're using instant clones, AppVolumes, and UEM to control kind of the different aspects of a user experience. So basically, this customer mainly concentrated on writable volumes, but we're currently in the process of app stacking a lot of their applications as well. They were an SCCM shop, so they had a portal where you could install applications. So writable volumes seemed to be the best fit, where the user could choose their own application and then it would install onto the writable volume. And in a floating pool scenario, it was great because they, any desktop they got not only their user experience, but also their apps that they had installed and needed for each user. And here's an example of, here's the AppVolumes Manager interface. I wanted to just show a quick rundown of writables and how they were created. You can see here, I have a writable volume assigned to my user account. The destination path is kind of default here. And this was installed on, this customer didn't use VXRail, but this is just a generalized way of creating writables. Writables can also be assigned to OUs, user groups, and even machines, which I'll kind of go over in one of the next slides here, which is convenient. So yeah, here's an example of the writable volume. You can see here how it was, it's assigned to my user account, but you can actually entitle it to AD groups also, so that they're entitled to specific pools. And then you can even break it down further than that, which I'll show you with this next slide that they utilized, where you can assign it and limit the attachment to specific computers. This was really useful for them because some users had multiple pools. One of the pools that they would sign into, they didn't need their writable, so they limited the writable volume down to a specific computer name. So if pool 1 was named, pool 1 desktop 01, then they could limit it down to the computer name. So if they logged into pool 2, they wouldn't get a writable, or maybe they would get a different writable, those kind of things. So just this was one of the newer features, I think, with one of the versions of AppVolumes that was really useful to kind of limit it to which pool they could have writables on. So I guess long story short with this customer was writables was real big, and after working with them for a long time and getting a lot of different challenges to go through to get the writable set up, in the end it was a great success with this customer for that. Yeah, so customer success again. So the customer was happy with the design, and this project is actually still going, as are a couple of other projects with the other use cases. That I think that's one of the cool things about these is once you start a project, more and more use cases come up within the corporation. So other business units will come in and say, hey, I really like what these guys are doing over here. Can you do that for us? But we need this set of criteria. So it's always good to have a successful implementation for a customer. And then they want you to come in and do more for other aspects of the company. They're actually, validated the design and they're ready to roll it out globally. So very cool with this customer. All right. So I guess this brings us to the third use case here. This was a multinational retail corporation. They had a lot of different stores, all over the United States and Europe, Mexico, just a bunch of different places. And they wanted a VDI infrastructure also using Hyper-Converged, mainly for the delivery of desktops. And they also wanted delivery of apps. So not just desktop, they wanted actual just specific apps delivered to these even external partners, external customers, and their internal staff as well. They wanted something that was easily installed, managed, upgraded, which obviously screams VXRail again, for the hyper-converged infrastructure. It's, great in all those things, real easy to set up, manage. You don't have to train a large IT staff to manage the VXRail portion of it. And then they also wanted network security at the VM level and the edge. Quick note on just some of the products that they were using. Horizon 7 AppVolumes 2.11. Since the writing of these versions have gone up, we've done multiple upgrades. UEM, Identity Manager, and then the access points, which are now called Unified Access Gateway. I probably need to change that in here. They used to be called access points, and then recently they've changed it to the UAGs. So, but this specific use case, was built on VXRail. They've currently expanded, but we have a management cluster, and then we have a desktop cluster. So the management cluster is currently 4 nodes in a VXRail platform, and then we have a 16-node VXRail platform for the desktop workloads that basically runs all the desktop workloads, and then the management runs all of the management stuff, like Composer, connection servers, AppVolumes servers, those kind of things. So. Oh, and then there was a node down here I probably forgot. Let me go back one little step. They also had a Microsoft Windows 2012 RDSH farm that was running on here as well, which runs on the desktop cluster. A quick note about VXRail. I think one of the main reasons that they went with VXRail is they just wanted to dramatically lower and simplify the IT operations. You can get a generalized IT person usually and train them up to control the general aspects of VXRail. Not necessarily going into VMware and trying to control that aspect of it, but getting the VXRail set up, upgrades, those kind of things can be pretty much done by some of your generalized IT staff. VXRail has a lot of different versions. I won't go through all of them, but this particular use case was going to be the VDI optimized version, which actually has graphics acceleration. At the time, the ones that we went with, they weren't requiring any kind of 3D. So they went with just the VDI portion, or the VDI version that doesn't have 3D cards. So they have an entry-level node. They have storage heavy nodes and a performance heavy node. So they have a lot of options there. And then another VXRail tab. This is kind of the same thing. Scalable. One of the things too was great, about the scalability. That they started with 4 nodes in one cluster, which is the management, and then they started with 4 nodes in the desktop cluster as well, and they needed to scale out quickly, so they were able to just bring in more nodes. You go into the VXRail interface, you basically click Add Node, and long story short, VXRail adds the node in and does all the work for you, and it comes in, vSAN's configured, the distributed switches are configured, or it's thrown onto the distributed switch. So just a lot easier than if you were to add your own nodes. Even from a vSAN ready node, there's a little bit more work there. So yeah, it was great for this customer to use VXRail. It helps their deployments quite a bit. Another note about vSAN here, which is a huge component of VXRail, and one of the main reasons that they liked using it. They didn't have to start out with a high performance SAN, and make a huge investment. They were able to just bring in these nodes and use the existing storage on the nodes and pull that into a data store that's highly available. Disaster recovery. You can change the fault tolerance or failures to tolerate to whatever is best suited for you, so they could survive 1 node failure or even 2 if they wanted to set it that way with how many nodes that they had. So that was a great addition here too. I'll probably kind of just skip this one, for the time. Another VXRail slide here. Easy to scale, easy to manage. Okay, so on to the Horizon infrastructure for this one. This is kind of a simplified drawing, just to show kind of a high-level overview. You can see that they had a VXRail cluster basically running the VDI desktops. I don't know if I show it separated out here from a management cluster and a desktop cluster, but this is just kind of a generalized. You can see on the left, they had an F5 load balancer as well, which basically went into their identity management server. and then from there would forward on to the internal VIP. I don't have listed here, but they also used the unified access gateways in this one as well to provide external access to this. Another component of this, I guess, was the identity management portal, which wasn't used necessarily in the use cases of the other clients. The identity management portal was great for them because they wanted basically have the portal where you can have applications all listed, and it even has cloud applications on it that you can, add to your, your personal workspace. So that was real convenient for them, and the overall experience is just a lot better. Let's see here. It was all based off VMware Horizon 7. A lot of this is probably familiar to a lot of people that use VMware a lot. So the connection server, all these things. I'll kind of skip over this one. But a real quick note is one reason that this customer was interested in VDI was they had used a bunch of jump boxes. I'm sure a lot of companies, you've worked with do this. You VPN in, you connect to a desktop, and from there you access all your resources. Well, over time, this just became hard to manage for them. Keeping these desktops up to date, are they secure? So a VDI solution for them with all of the desktops in the data center where they can control them a lot better was easier to manage for them. And it also got rid of the VPN as well. All right, so a big one for them, it was great to have desktops, but the user also wanted to deliver applications. They didn't want to just deliver desktops to these users. They wanted the user to be able to log into a portal and find an application that they had actually set up in-house. So RDSH and AppVolumes tie together very well with this, where you can provision an app stack, assign it to an RDSH pool, and then those apps are available through RDSH, and then within Horizon, you can actually just share those apps out. So when the user logs in and sees their available applications, they'll have their VDI desktop application and then their individual apps, such as Microsoft Office. Maybe they just want to run Word and that's it. Or in the case of this, retailer, they had custom applications that customers would use and remotely log in. And, let's just say it was Putty or something small like that. So they would remote in, see their Putty icon, run it, and that's it. No need for a desktop there. So that was a big advantage for them as well. I think I put just a quick slide here, on the RDSH. I don't know if there's anything here that's not different from the other slide. But basically they had multiple RDSH farms, which were great because you can use them in almost kind of like a linked clone, but it's more of a template. You can spin off multiple RDSH servers from that. And so that made the deployment of the RDSH environment a lot easier than how it would have been, in their previous Citrix environment. It's kind of what they had before. So this was almost a great replacement for that type of environment. Another component that they utilized that they were very happy with was VMware User Environment Manager, or UEM. They did a lot of things with this. Some of the packaged things, user settings, folder redirection, and many of the other aspects that UEM comes with. And they were really excited that you could import the group policy ADMX templates directly into it. And a lot of the small things that they wanted to do, they didn't have to go through their Windows services team to have a group policy pushed down. They could just make a quick change that would go directly to the UEM agent on the desktop and see those changes immediately. And if they didn't work, they could pull it back. Those kind of things. So they also created a lot of custom application changes. So when they developed custom applications, it was easy for them to use UEM to send, let's just say, a small registry entry or something to all those desktops on the fly. So it made management of their custom applications very easy and easily managed there. So I think this is just a quick overview of just VMware and User Environment Manager. It basically helps to separate the user environment information from the desktop and allows the customer to have the exact same desktop presentation no matter which desktop they're logged into. They were actually so impressed with the UEM infrastructure after it was set up that they pushed it out to all their physical desktops as well, and they started using it on there. So that was a good win with the UEM, and they're still using it extensively. So it's been a great addition for this customer. And I think this would actually be a slide here for any questions about any of those use cases. So thank you very much.